we've been following. It's been a week now, I think, since the Ohio train derailment. That happened a week ago. Was it Monday? Or I think it was like a week ago Friday. Over the weekend, I think it was on Monday, we took a call from someone living in East Palestine, Ohio. And I think it was on Monday we took that call.
Actually, I think it was Wednesday.
Maybe it was by Wednesday. And we had talked about it, but there was so little information coming out in the first couple of days. And it took them 24 hours to announce the freight company to announce, like, how much of what chemicals were there. And they're still dribsing and drabbing it out. And it turns out, these chemicals are incredibly carcinogenic. One of them was essentially mustard gas. And that seems to be continuing unabated. This was a news report today on WKBN 27 News. Just go to the reporter. We don't need the anchors. And the idea that it's taking 7 days for this information to be released is absolutely absurd. You've got these essentially these chemical bombs being transported through small towns, some maybe bigger towns, maybe bigger cities. We just don't know. And there's just this presumption that, like, of course, there are contingency plans. Of course, there are mechanisms in place that in the event that one of these things blows up for whatever reason. And this is all done with the backdrop, which we talked about 3 months ago, I guess, was the amazing amount of cuts to the workers on these trains and the attempt to increase their profits by overworking and understaffing their trains.
And elongating the trains so that they can transport more and more, which increases the likelihoods of these kinds of disasters while understaffing at the same time. That was part of what the workers were speaking about. And
here's this report on exactly, like, just a week, well, really, 9 days later, they're finding out that there's even more chemicals.
Oh.
We now know 3 more chemicals that were on board the Norfolk Southern train that derailed here in East Palestine just over a week ago. And we're being told that some of those chemicals are dangerous.
We basically nuked the town with chemicals so we could get a railroad open.
The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency sent a letter to Norfolk Southern stating that ethylene glycol monobutyl ether, ethylexyl-acrylate, and isobutylene were also in the rail cars that were derailed, breached, or on fire. Caggiano says ethylexyl-acrylate is especially worrisome. He says it's a carcinogen, and contact with it can cause burning and irritation in the skin and eyes. Breathing it in can irritate the nose, throat, and cause coughing and shortness of breath. Isobutylene is also known to cause dizziness and drowsiness when inhaled.
I was kind of surprised that when they quickly told the people they can go back home, but then said if they feel like they want their homes tested, they can have them tested. I would have far rather they did all the testing.
Caggiano says it's possible some of these chemicals could still be present in homes and on objects until you clean them thoroughly.
Oh, there's a lot of what ifs, and we're going to be looking at this thing 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line and wondering, gee, cancer clusters could pop up, well water could go bad.
Caggiano recommends anyone who's in the East Palestine area get a health checkup. He says get a record now of where your health stands so that moving forward you'll have documentation of any possibly related effects to the train derailment. In East Palestine, Jennifer.
Okay. I mean, absolutely absurd that people would have to do that in this instance, as opposed to getting this information on day one. Aside from the fact that that these type of things are preventable. But again, this is a perfect example of socializing the costs of the enormous profits that these, in this instance, these freight companies are deriving. Here's a second report that came from Fox 8 Ohio, again today. And now the drinking water is at risk.
East Palestine Police Department is warning that drinking water may be at risk for some people following last week's train derailment. Officials said that the Portable Well Task Group will be knocking on doors of the homes that they have identified as having that at-risk drinking water wells. The news comes just days after officials gave the all clear for residents to return to their homes following a fiery train derailment on February 3rd. The Ohio EPA is investigating impacts to water and possible remediation, collecting water samples from nearby water streams, and Sulphur Run, where a dam was installed to prevent further contamination.
I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah, when I was with TY...
This is after they have been allowed to go back to their homes and drink the water.
Yeah. When I was with TYT, I did a report on rural Delaware of this family that had a ton of cancer, including amputations, young family members dying, because they were drinking well water they had for a long period of time. They live in rural Delaware, and they were near a chicken processing plant, and the runoff was just going directly into the well water. And clearly it was affecting everybody's health. And that was from chicken processing and that kind of runoff going into the ground for many years. The amount of toxins that will be in the soil and well water for the foreseeable future in this community and in the surrounding towns, it's going to be downplayed, and we won't know the effects for decades at this point. But I can't even imagine how contaminated that water supply will be, and I wouldn't trust initial tests on this, because you've got to just make sure that it's more likely a worst possible case scenario than is going to be portrayed at first.
Well, here's the other part, is that they go around, they test the water, and they're still today finding out what new chemicals are in there. The way you test water is not, we're just going to do some blanket test on water and see what pops up. That's not the way it works. You need to know what you're testing for. And so if they're still finding out a week, 10 days later, other carcinogenic chemicals that were burning in that fire, you know they're going to find more by the end of the week, and they're going to have to go back and retest the water. In the meantime, you've got God knows how many families, people living in these houses. What are they supposed to do? They can't leave. They've got to go to work. It really is just an incredible crap show.
That the suggestion is get your health checked out so you have documentation in case you get cancer from this.
Right.
I mean, gosh.
The best, and that presumes that they have access to, healthcare and could just take the day off.
It's good advice, though. If that is the case, do it. But also try to get out of there if you can.
The best advice is, get out of there if you can. But I mean, most of these people aren't going to be able to.
Right.